Hi everybody, Daniel here. This is our first video of 2020. So yeah, I'm happy to present to you this material. Actually, this is from the Mattershots selection, which you can find on Instagram. This is hosted by Substance. So this is a great resource for practice actually with Substance Designer. It's mostly about patterns, I would say, but you can get nice organic texture also. So it's a great way to practice and then trying to come up with your own designs. Why not? But yeah, so I found this this reference on Mattershots. This one. So yeah, I liked it and I thought we could make something out of it. And I actually focused more on this part. I didn't want the bigger shapes, just only small and medium-sized shapes. I mean by shapes the impacts that you can see here in the wall. So yeah, this is a wall, and yeah, there are some interesting things going on. You have to create first a surface that is not very smooth, quite complex actually, and then trying to come up with a way to create those holes on the surface. I won't cover the color part too much, and the roughness will be very quick. So yeah, I'm gonna show you a bit more of the material in Marmoset here. So yeah, you have to imagine this in a environment. I think it could work. Yeah, I think for a tutorial that's enough. I don't want to, of course, put too much things in it. The graph is already pretty good size. Let's now have a look at the maps. So this is the color, the base color map. Let's have a look at the roughness. This one is quite rich. The normal, for which I chose an intensity of 3. Okay, cool. The height and the ambient occlusion, which is quite useful in this one, because if you don't have occlusion, it's not gonna look the same. I can show you. Yeah, without ambient occlusion. Good work actually in some cases. And I guess if I don't use the normal, it could look a bit stylized. Let's try not using the normal. Yeah. Instantly it looks, yeah, it looks almost stylized. But yeah, I need the roughness and I need a bit more occlusion values. Maybe not too much, I don't know. It's up to you then at some point. Okay, now let's see how this one has been made. So I'm using here to show you a bit better base material node that can be used with so a gradient map, because we want the base color. So I can do that so that you can see each step. So we have a base, we have impacts, stones, cracks, some dents. So yeah, okay. So let's go with this base. So usually for wall, for concrete, for something that is quite flat, I like to start with a fractal sum base that I blend with another fractal. So here I'm blending a fractal sum base with a fractal sum 1 that I blend with a height blend. The height blend compared to classic blend node just allows you to offset actually the blending based on the height, so you can get way more variation than with a classic blend node. So yeah, I think it's actually a very useful node. Here I use the levels just because I wanted good chunks of the surface to be actually flat, to have very little variation in it. So then I'm blending this with a grunge map and a subtract mode. So basically I just wanted to create a bit more surface complexity. So we can see here the grunge map being subtracted from our previous blend. Same thing here with the moisture noise. Just subtract small value. I'm gonna repeat it, but yeah, because sometimes people ask, yeah, but why did you use this value in the levels node or this value in the blend node? Well, I try a lot of things. So, okay, I'm like this. Okay, not very good. Too strong. Too soft. Okay, it's just a matter of trying actually. There's no secret behind it. It's just a matter of testing. So yeah, if you want to just check quickly the values for the moisture noise and this grunge map 8, can do it. Okay, so we have our base. Let's view up the outputs. Let's try with the Tomoko Studio. I like this one. Okay, and let's move on. So then I created impacts to be subtracted from my base. Okay, with this blend node, base, blend node. I use the min darken blending mode. You can use actually a subtract, but you won't get exactly the same result. Let's make a test here. So right now we are using the min darken blending mode. Let's try to use the subtract one. So to be clear, the min darken subtracts the black parts of your image. Okay, the subtract actually subtract the white parts. So let's do this so that we can see the difference. So this is with the subtract. So I just used the invert grayscale here. And let's try again with the min darken to see the difference. So I find the min darken way more subtle and way more interesting for this kind of exercise. The subtract is the classic subtract is not subtle at all. Okay, so now let's have a look at how I made those impacts here. This damage pass, the first one. Here's the frame. So I started with a dirt map. The logic behind this is to then use the levels and by cranking up the white values, I can start to isolate some bigger shapes, bigger islands that I can then totally isolate thanks to a blur and another levels. So this is a pretty easy technique. And then I'm trying to sculpt the edges of those black parts with simply a slope blur. And the slope is actually a Clouds 2, I guess. Yeah. I use Clouds 2 quite a lot. I think they are producing very good results for minerals, actually, when you're playing or when you're making rocks or walls or floors. I think it's nice. So this one, I'm sending it to our blend, which is using the min darken. Okay, very good. Let's see here what it does. So yeah, this is the result of this second step. Okay, let's move on to another blend. As you can see, I'm just trying to add more damage just around the previous pass, just to create something more interesting. I have a node here, which is very interesting. This is a physical sun sky that you can connect to an output with the, as a usage, you can choose panorama. And yeah, you have a sun and a sky that can light your object. So you can get very nice lighting, pretty natural lighting actually. And with the physical sun sky node, you can actually change the sun position, the turbidity. The lower you go, the brighter the sky is and the sun. But yeah, I don't want to use this right now because with the Tomoko I can show you more precise stuff. Let's see how this secondary damage pass is done. Actually, so this is with our second blend node, which again use a subtract. So for the value, as you can see, if it's too low, you don't see anything. If it's too high, it's too doesn't make any sense. So yeah, just by trying, I just thought and I just found out that 0.15 is okay. Okay, so this secondary pass is actually made with multidirectional warp grayscale, which is using the clouds 2 as the noise, as the input, and the primary input is just based on this levels node, the impacts pass. Okay. So yeah, I thought with this multi-directional warp grayscale, which comes with Substance Designer, it's not an external node, you can really get something very interesting to complement the first impact. So the idea here is just to add a second layer. So it has to be quite subtle, not too defined, so that's why I used this blur node here. Okay. Then a slope blur to add nice details like concrete that is being slowly broken apart. So I used a slope blur for this with a clouds 1 node as the slope. Okay, then I think I use a mask, use a multiply here. Sorry, it's a bit complex to follow. I know this part. So here I have my noise. Okay, I have this clouds 1, this moisture noise. So I'm again using another slope blur, which can be actually blended with the previous slope blur that we saw, just to try to again add a layer of a bit more complexity to it. And then I'm using a mask with subtract, and the mask is here, is just a grunge map, level, blur, level. Okay, so actually I'm saying to designer to not create those detail, supplementary detail everywhere. But I could also do this, not using this mask. Let's see the difference. So this is without the mask, okay? And this is with the mask. I guess I just wanted some parts to be sharper, like here, whereas without the mask, it's not the case. But I don't know, maybe this pass is a bit more realistic, so I guess I can get rid of this. I'm just not using it. Yeah, I think I'm gonna keep it like that. So then we have the blend node that we checked before. So yeah, we have nice complementary detail, additional detail around the main impact shapes. So that's cool. Okay, then I use the hide blend, so we can we can see right away why I made this pass. It's just to not have a completely flat or black background, black bottom with these impacts. So that's why I use the height offset to be able actually to decide exactly where I wanted the bottom noise to fit. So let's see how this is made. It's very simple. Just a clouds 2 with a high scale of 7. I use the sharpen to make sure that the definition is clear enough. And then we know that with a hide blend, this noise pass can appear only where the height values are pretty low. So inside our impacts. So that's cool. Then I wanted, let's see, I wanted even more damage around the main impacts, as you can see the difference, because in our picture we can clearly see that we have like a subtraction of big shapes around the holes. Here we can see it here, here, a little bit here, and here clearly. So I really wanted something like that. And yeah, once again, I use a subtract. So you can see clearly here. You just have to find the right value. Maybe 0.15, you can test. With 0.15 you can see it pretty clearly, but I think it's too much. Maybe not enough. Yeah, okay. So how this bigger subtracted shapes are made? Well, actually, I started with a Gaussian noise. And once again, the idea is to isolate islands. So that's what I did with levels. Then a multi-directional warp with clouds 2. The first clouds 2 that we saw initially, that is here. So yeah, it's a good way to give a more organic twist to your shape and good energy. Then a histogram scan to better isolate the islands. Then I wanted to add a noise on top of that, so I used the multiply with the clouds 1 noise, nothing special. Then I wanted to make sure to have a better contour, better defined edge around each island, and then it's just a matter of subtracting it. Okay, nothing fancy. Okay, then I wanted to add actually stones, small stones, inside the big impacts. So let's see with this base material. Can see, yeah, that the stones appear here, whereas before let's see here, for example. Yeah, it's quite subtle, but on some parts you can really see the difference. here quite a lot without the stones. Okay, and with the stones. Yeah, because once again, if I go back to our reference, we can see some parts of the wall are protruding through the impact. The resolution of this one is a bit small, so it's not easy to see it. Here you can see something. This one. So it's a subtle detail, but yeah, you can always try to come up with this type of things. Let's see the final view. So yeah, you can have some stones here. And if I set the opacity to 0, yeah, they're gone. So yeah, you just used some detail like that. I think it gives something a bit more real. I think we can see it even better in Marmoset, of course. Around here. So let's have a look at how I made those little stones quickly. So first you want a big shape, something that is not too simple. Actually, I could have used simply probably a paraboloid. Let's see if it changes anything. It's probable that it doesn't change. It doesn't change anything. Okay, yeah. I see absolutely no difference between this and this. Yeah, actually, in this case, there's no difference. So let's get rid of this. We can get rid of this also. And here in the tile sampler, you can simply choose paraboloid. And yeah, it's the same thing. Oftentimes in Designer, you start with an ID and there you go with it. And you see it's looking good. And you don't really go back to see if you can actually get rid of some nodes. So that's what I've just done here. And yeah, so I gained more readability in this part. Now it's just 3 nodes. So let's have a look at this tile sampler for the scale mostly. The position random. I could have used the color random, but I don't really need it. I just subtracted here moisture noise. Just to create some areas that don't have the same height value. So yeah, yeah, this slope blur, it's just clouds 1. Okay, so we have a slope blur and we have a quick blend. I'm sure that this blend I can also get rid of it. Oh, no, actually, yeah, actually it's quite useful. So I probably leave it be. Maybe with a different value. No, I think it was fine. It was fine the way it was. So yeah, okay. Then the levels to have a bit of control. Depends on how much little stones you want to see in your wall. Okay, great. Okay, let's move on. So then I wanted some very vertical cracks. It's not cracks actually, it's more like maybe rain that eroded the wall. We can see them quite clearly here, here. Yeah, it's just another detail pass that gives more complexity to your stuff and is closer to the reference. So on the reference, we could see something like this. Actually, there's a layer that has been damaged. Could see something maybe here. So yeah, I like to have some erosion, usually in a wall, in a way. So okay, let's see how I made those cracks. I've named them cracks, but they're more like strands of erosion. I decided to start with the scratches generator because I knew that I could have lines like this with distortion. So you have splines and you can really create some organics turns. So I quite like this one. And with the new multidirectional warp grayscale, you can start, I think, creating something like it's water running down a surface, a flat surface. So yeah, I used this multidirectional warp with a Gaussian noise. Auto levels to fine tune the gradient that I got. And these levels I used it as a mask because of course I wanted to subtract the erosion only where this mask tells it to subtract it. So yeah, and with this mask, I can actually have great control over the effect. It's not only a matter of opacity, it's also your mask. So let's continue with our erosion. So I just inverted it, level, then a slope blur, probably with a clouds 2. Yeah, the same clouds 2 as seen in the beginning. Okay, cool. And then I multiply. Okay, I multiplied it because I think I wanted my erosion path to have some sort of texture to it. But of course, here it's a bit of a mistake because you can use the multiply node to apply a texture to something, but it applies it to the white parts. And for the most part, my erosion is black. So yeah, what I've done here doesn't serve. I mean, is not very interesting. But at least I get some texture around the edges. So now I'm sending this here with the min darken. And with the mask that we saw. And I think the last step regarding the base texture is the dance. So yeah, it's a final pass of detail that can give that can really sell it. And we are going to check the difference. So yeah, I wanted some damage like this here. So if I do this, it's not much, but it is something. It's nice to check and to see the difference. To me, this version felt a bit naked, not really finished, so yeah, that's why I used this pass. And we can really see it if I crank up the opacity of the subtract. Okay, cool. Let's see how I made this dense pass. I used a tile sampler with 3 different shapes, so it's just a paraboloid with transform nodes to subtract and cut through them. So yeah, I have 3 different shapes, a tile sampler, so 64 by 64, and then you just have to play with the scale random and the position random, and that's about it. Then it's just a matter of applying a swap blur grayscale with our clouds 2, and again a multidirectional warp to really create this organic effect. And then you send this to Safe Transform if you want to tile it a bit more. In this case, I just left it like that, but you can tile if you want smaller shapes, smaller detail, as you can see here. I think a tile of 2 is nice, but I guess I liked the original size. So it's just a subtract with a mask because I didn't want the subtract to be, I didn't want this pass to be uniform like this, or to be exactly everywhere with the same weight. So yeah, I used a simple mask. I think this is based on our Gaussian noise that we saw a bit earlier. Yeah, okay, cool. And then, no, I'm not going to talk about the color map because this is going to be too long. You have enough information in this walkthrough. If you want to reproduce it, yeah, you can try to make your own color pass with the color strips here. For the roughness, I used the normal, actually, with the normal to height HQ. I inverted it because I didn't want, of course, with the roughness metallic workflow, the white values, the white parts are rough and the black parts are shiny. So I didn't want the impacts to be shiny. I think they had to be matte. So that's why I use this invert node. I used this new node that I bought online. Actually, my studio bought it. This is advanced normals to roughness. Yeah, it gives more accurate roughness information based on your height and your normal and your roughness. It's not very different. Okay, so if you don't want to buy it, if you don't want to use it, that's fine. I'm gonna show you the difference actually. So this is my base roughness. I'm sending it through a histogram range to have more control once again, so you can see the difference. So without the advanced normals node, and with it. So I like this node. Let's see who made it. Ryan Evans. So yeah. I think it's a really, really good one. Roughness is quite hard to really nail, so if you can have some help like this one, as you can see, it's a bit better. Yeah, it's subtle, but okay. So yeah, I wanted to talk about this for the roughness. It's always the same process, so okay. Then I use a small blur node with 0.4 intensity for the height, and by ambient occlusion is relatively high. It's I quite seldom set it to 0.1. Usually it's more like 0.01 or 0.02. But in this case, it didn't feel right. So let's put it back at 0.1. So we covered the normal, the roughness, the height, the ambient occlusion. Okay, and the color pass, nothing special about it. I did it quite quickly. So yeah, we made it through. I covered the whole graph with you. Some parts are a bit tricky. This one, yeah, it's not always very simple, very clear. This is not a very simple material. It's not very advanced, but it's not so simple to make, and it's even less simple to present and to explain. But yeah, as usual, don't hesitate to comment, to say or to explain what I could do better in this kind of walkthrough tutorials. Well, it's not a tutorial per se, it's just presentation, but yeah, I wanted to give you a glimpse of on how I make this thing, and also the logic behind the nodes that I choose. So yeah, it's quite important, I think, to present the process and to kind of break down this kind of exercise. So I think this was my first Mattershots material actually. Thank you very much for your attention, and let's have a good week of work. Ciao, people.